Taxpayer dollars went to pay people to infiltrate and take notes on our meetings, and it's absolutely enraging. And I can only draw two conclusions from it. I mean, the first is that a lot of this Homeland Security funding is an absolute sham, that it's being used to actually crush dissent, not to keep us safer in any real way. I mean, we were talking about farmers markets, for goodness sakes, petitioning, doing tablings. And the second thing I can conclude from this is that we actually posed a real threat in Maryland. We won a moratorium against the death penalty. We'd exposed it as the most racist death row in these United States, and yet still, I think it just made them remarkably nervous because we were making some real headway.
Do you know who was spying on you?
Yes, we do. It was somebody who was known to us as Lucy. She came into our meetings. She was very enthusiastic. I remember her sitting there taking copious notes. She wasn't the sort of person who would raise her hand and ask incendiary questions. It all seemed very much like this was just another person from this liberal enclave of Tacoma Park who was interested in working with us. And I'll tell you, that's one of the most insidious things about this, and this is the whole history of counterintelligence, COINTELPRO, is that it breeds this sense of paranoia. It breeds this sense of, do I really know this person sitting next to me? Who is this person really about? And I really hope that as activists, our reaction is not to regard the people who are next to us at demonstrations with suspicion. And it's like my friend Mike Stark says, hey, as long as the police agents are carrying water, then let's not try to be too much looking at each other and pointing fingers at each other, because it's far more important that we keep our eyes on the prize. And for us, that's ending the death penalty in Maryland.
Max Obuszewski, was Lucy someone who was known to you, and did you feel like you were being followed?
Well, let me also mention this, that Lucy, her first contact that we have so far that we know of was actually back in February, before the dates in these documents. She attended a meeting that Bernardine Dorn spoke at in Baltimore. This was, I believe it was February 8th of '05.
The well-known Irish activist.
Exactly.
No. Yes, the activist from Chicago.
Exactly. Weather Underground. So I got that information from Red Emma's, a bookstore here in Baltimore, that she was at that, but she was Ann at that time. And I went back and looked at the emails I received from her. She changed her name later to Shoop. And it's very interesting because in the documents, a lot of this information is redacted. Once they come to my quote-unquote criminal history, most of that is redacted. But there's at least one place, maybe two places in there where she's identified. Do we have a friend in the Attorney General's office that intentionally did that? I don't know. But you have to understand, though, that there was more than just her coming to meetings, watching us. We had an anti-death penalty protest when Ehrlich was being inaugurated in Annapolis, and this gentleman showed up and was with us, traveled with us, came back with us. We never saw him again, never heard from him again. The presumption is he was also a state police officer following us. The sad thing is, as Dave is talking about, all of these gatherings, there's also the Hiroshima Nagasaki Commemoration Committee. They actually came to one of our rallies where we had Hibakusha speaking. The sad thing about all of this, constantly in these documents, the agents indicate that we were doing nonviolent work, that we were doing First Amendment work, but they kept repeating, we think that this investigation should continue. They logged in 288 hours. I'm a pacifist. The idea that the Maryland State Police, the Homeland Security Division, is going to be coming to meetings that I attend is beyond comprehension. Generally, in larger meetings, I always ask if there's anyone here from the FBI, the NSA, or the CIA, please identify yourself. You're welcome to participate in the meeting.
These are open meetings. You advertise them for people to come.
They're advertised. There's flyers put up. The rallies are all announced. Anyone can come to our meetings. We're trusting.
Mike Stark is quoted in the Washington Post and other activists, anti-death penalty activists, if the governor, O'Malley, will now be spied on because he's opposed to the death penalty.
Right, and I think this lays out an important challenge to Governor O'Malley, because Governor O'Malley has said in response to this, he has said, well, look, we are not going to be spying on people who engage in lawful activities. I would make the case that that's not good enough. We need a full investigation of what the Maryland State Police have done. We need an absolutely ironclad statement by people in power that they're not going to spy on people who are involved in what should be constitutionally protected acts. And I'll tell you something. Robert Ehrlich, the governor of Maryland, he put his hand on a Bible and swore to uphold the Constitution of the United States, and then he proceeded to use the Constitution as a handy wipe in surveilling people like Max, myself, and many, many others. And I think it's got to be clear that we're going to go on offense right now. We're going to have press conferences. We're going to bring a lawsuit through the ACLU. And when this is all said and done, Bob Ehrlich and the state of Maryland, they're going to be paying for my kids' braces, because this is outrageous that they've gone after us like this.
It's interesting, Dave Zirin. Your latest piece is about China, and it's about the Olympics, and about repression, about serious squelching of freedom of speech of all the different countries' teams.
Right. No, that's absolutely right, and that's happening inside and outside of China. I mean, recently there have been flames of protests in many different provinces in China, from Sichuan, where the earthquakes were, to Hunan, Shanghai, Guizhou, and the common variable has been the Chinese totalitarian government has said, quote, we need to go on war footing to make sure that there are no protests in Beijing during the Olympics. At the same time, Western powers have put out the word to their athletes, you cannot go to China and raise issues like Darfur, like Tibet, like issues about labor rights, even issues of the environment and bottled water, which affect athletes directly. I mean, we're going to see marathon athletes perhaps running with masks on because they're so scared of the environmental damage that it could do to their lungs by running in Beijing. And so you've got this crackdown on dissent in China that's being mirrored by Western Olympic officials, and here at home, those of us who just want to get together in Tacoma Park and talk about fighting the death penalty are seeing similar infiltration. It boggles the mind.
The head of the Olympic Committee has warned this, the head of the British Olympic Committee, the Canadian Olympic Committee. Has the U.S. Olympic Committee told athletes not to speak out?
They're engaging in a very interesting contradictory message. On the one hand, they have said quite clearly, like, sports and politics do not mix. They've laid that down. And the coach of USA Basketball, for example, Mike Krzyzewski, has said one has nothing to do with the other. It shouldn't happen. At the same time, other Olympic officials have said, well, we do sort of believe in freedom of speech, so maybe people should say something. And I think that speaks to the push-pull relationship that the U.S. has with China, as both people they depend on for underwriting their wars overseas and as their global banker, but at the same time also they're in competition with China for global economic supremacy. So you see those contradictions in how the U.S. is approaching the Olympics.
We're going to leave it there. Dave Zirin, well-known sports writer, his latest book, Welcome to the Terror Dome, The Pain, Politics, and Promise of Sports, and Max Obuszewski, longtime peace activist from Baltimore. Both Dave and Max have been the targets of a Maryland spying campaign by the state police. They're asking for more documents and say they're suing. That does it for today's broadcast. You can go to our website for the video, audio podcast, or the transcript. Democracy Now! Produced by Mike Berkshire, Doku Sarah Mate, Angelique Comet, Jeffrey Hagerman, Steve Martinez, Nicole Salazar, Hani Masood, Ravi Karen, Mike DeFilippo, Miguel Noguera, Peter Curry is our engineers. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks for joining us.